Aljamain, thank you so much for having us at your house.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, this is beautiful. So we're here in Las Vegas as you prepare for UFC 288 on May 6th, and you balance your time. You go from Vegas to New York, back and forth. Why is that the right mixture for you?
Well, I like warm weather. That's one, and I think having access to UFC PI has been very beneficial to me. Food, from a nutritional standpoint, being able to have direct access to the nutritionist, physical therapy, something I didn't really do much of when I was back home in New York. So to have that at my disposal has been one of the things I think I've definitely been lacking, and just having the space, less distractions as well. People will probably think that I'm probably on the strip hanging out, but you know, I go to the gym and I come back home, and that's pretty much my routine out here.
What gyms are you training at in Las Vegas?
I bounce around a little bit, so I might be one of those guys. Hopefully I'm not. I try to help where I can. You know, Murab, he predominantly does his training camps at Syndicate MMA, so whenever he's training for a fight, I'm at Syndicate MMA. Whenever I don't have a fight or he doesn't have a fight, sometimes we pop into Extreme Couture, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, and for me, most of the time I do my training at the PI.
I think it speaks volumes, though, because not a lot of athletes are able to really do that with the different gyms in Vegas, but you guys are, and it seems like you're welcomed everywhere.
Yeah, we try to be as political, you know, PG, just stay out of the trouble and things like that. We like to help, you know, so if there's any time we could jump in to help their guys, that's what we're there for. We're kind of like that extra body, and I think iron sharpens iron, so if they have someone that needs that wrestling look or even that pace, the cardio for the machine, I think they love having us down in the room, so I think it kind of benefits everybody. But for the most part, I'm kind of more hands-on with my coaching and the way that I like to approach my fights in my training camp. I typically am the captain ever since as long as I can remember, even when I first started as an amateur, you know, so that's never going to change, I don't think.
Well, it's certainly working for you, so it doesn't need to change, it doesn't seem. But when you go to New York, you have guys like Ray Longo and Matt Serra and lots of training partners that you've worked with for years. How do they then mix in, and what's the biggest benefit of working with guys like Ray?
The biggest benefit is he's kind of a, I would say, no-nonsense kind of guy, kind of gives it to you straight, and it's just fun, good energy to be around. He's always in a, I would say, a good mood. And for a guy his age, you would think he'd be this serious, uptight guy, but he's very loose, very lax, and it's just good energy to be around. He does a good job breaking down the film whenever we're watching stuff, and we kind of bounce ideas off of each other. And again, like, I dictate, for the most part, what I do. I ask for suggestions, what they think I should probably work on and what we can add in, and I kind of lay out my training schedule for the week or the next 2 weeks kind of thing, things that we want to focus on. And it's good to have him to see those things that we're doing, and even for sparring, when he pops in to see sparring, or if I'm out here in Vegas, I can send him over the sparring footage, and we kind of bounce ideas off of each other. And I like Quinta, since he's kind of stepped back a bit from competing, he's been a very big help in my corner, as well as breaking down the sparring the day of when he's there with me, or watching the footage and seeing things that he might think could actually work for me when it comes to preparing for these guys.
When you say you sort of dictate the things that you're going to do that week, what do you base it on? Is it based on how your body feels? Is it based on watching film? I mean, how exactly do you formulate the plan?
It's a little bit of both. You kind of have to have a balance, especially with how much time you have to prepare for a fight. I kind of like that 8 to 10 week mark, but even before that, I'm never really out of the gym. I'm always training for the most part. So if I have extra time, let's say if I'm 12 weeks out, I might use those 3 or 4 extra weeks to kind of prep my body with strength and conditioning, watching some tape, seeing some stuff that I want to really hone in, whether it's my opponent doing, like for Jan, for instance, we had guys come in the room trying to imitate Jan as best as they can, game planning some of the attacks that he has and what would be my best approach and how to kind of neutralize that. TJ Dillashaw, a very similar approach. Pedro Munoz, switching different partners so that we have someone who's going to always come forward, whether I'm getting tired or not. So it's just these type of things that we have to be honest with the assessment, and I think that's the hard part for people. Sometimes they think that what they're doing is enough, and I like to think I'm my worst critic, you know? So I think that helps me in leaving no stones unturned. If I know I'm going to be in a striking match with somebody and I think it's going to be very hard for me to get them down, like the Pedro Munoz fight, I knew I was going to have to stand up because my wrist at the time was pretty bad. I couldn't really even lift dumbbells the way I was doing before. It was pretty weak before I had the procedure, so I knew it was going to predominantly be a stand-up fight. So I had to make sure I had the output and the gas tank to go all 3 rounds with a guy like that who's going to always come forward. So I think it's easy, but it's not easy at the same time. You just got to kind of be realistic of what you need and try to balance out how many weeks you actually have. And I think in the off seasons when you have the most time to prepare and actually make gains in different areas.
We always hear those sentiments from fighters, but it seems like what you are doing and the formula you've put together is what has led to a championship title in the UFC. But you said something that really interests me there. Because it was a unique ride for you becoming champion from the beginning and those first couple of fights. You said that you're your own worst critic. Did that make sort of the criticism that you had received after that first fight with Petr Yan, did that make it easier to deal with because what they're saying probably is what, you might say to yourself in a certain sentiment?
Not really. Like, it's one of those weird things. Like, I had that fight. It wasn't going my way. And I've said this multiple times. And it's like no matter what you say, people don't care anyway. And that tends to be the reality of things. So when you keep it in perspective, like in the beginning, I was trying to apologize for why I had an off night, which I explained ad nauseum. And whether you want to believe me or not, that's the legitimate reason. And I knew that going into the rematch, it was going to be a completely different fight. And I got to show that. So I was really proud about that. But people are going to say what they want to say no matter what, whether you're winning, whether you're losing. At the end of the day, the numbers, they speak for themselves. As long as you keep winning, keep doing what you're supposed to do, I think there has to be some type of respect factor for just the simple fact that I've only fought 3 guys that were not ranked, within the top 15, top 10, and top 5. Everybody else has been a highly regarded or highly touted or some type of ranked opponent, and I beat all those guys that they put in front of me. A lot of these guys have these padded records and things like that, so people can say whatever they want to say, but I fought the best of the best, and not when they're coming off losses and things like that. I fought these guys when they're on winning streaks, when they're confident, and I just think people can say what they want, but I'm going to always be a little bit worse. But you got to kind of keep it in perspective. Glass half full. I know what I felt in there with Jan the first time. I'm like, this guy is not invincible. I know if I correct these things with my rehydration, that fight's not even close. And I do think him having the time to prepare for me allowed him to get better. And I will admit, and I've said this, I think the second fight, he actually prepared way better than he did the first time, even though I was getting my ass kind of kicked in that first fight. But you could kind of feel what someone could do. So from the first and the second fight, I was like, this feels different. But I'm still going to stay on my game plan and figure out what I need to do and take the right attacks and the right approach to getting the job done.
That mentality, though, of people are going to talk anyway, that is easier, I think, said than done for a lot of people. A lot of people want to feel that way, but at the end of the day, it gets to them. How are you this mentally strong? Is this something that was forged, in your youth? Is this something that you learned as an adult? Because I would say one of your best assets outside of the octagon is your ability to be yourself 100% and find peace in yourself. Like, we do interviews all the time or wherever we are, and you're always you, and you're always consistent regardless of what the outside noise is.
Yeah, I think I appreciate that. I think a lot of it does come from my youth. Long Islanders, I just say East Coast people in general, man. We break a lot of balls. We talk a lot of and you gotta have tough skin. Like, even my camera guy, I hired him. I brought him out from Chicago, and the first day he was kind of just getting it from everybody, and he just thought none of us liked him, and we had to teach him. Like, he was ready to go back home, and I was like, dude, this is just how we talk with each other, So you kind of gotta get used to that. And then having a family of 20 plus siblings, it's another game changer, man. We've had a lot of battles growing up, and if you want to say people say mean things, like, I don't think there's anyone who could have said some of the things that they've said to me growing up and things like that. So I think all that kind of combined, you kind of have that bulletproof mentality. And that's why even going into my next fight, I feel like my opponent is playing games, but I'm just like, I don't know if you know who you're dealing with, but if you want to play those mental games, I think you're playing with the wrong one. So if you want to go there and take it there, let's take it there.
We talk about critics and mentalities, but who in your life are your biggest supports? Who brings the positivity to you when maybe you're having a little bit of an off day?
Biggest support is definitely Rebecca, my fiance. Other than that, I mean, I don't want to say I'm a loner, but I do feel like sometimes in this sport it can feel very, I don't want to say dark, but it definitely could feel like there's some moments of just loneliness when you're just you and your thoughts and thinking about your opponent or having a bad night or you had a bad training session or you had a bad fight, which is you have to sit with that sometimes for weeks, months, or even years before you can get back out there and try to correct that or try to have a better performance, you know? So I try to keep myself as positive as I can, glass half full whenever I can, but she definitely helps with that and makes it a lot easier for me. Even when she tries and sometimes I'm just like, just not in the mood, you know? And that's normal everyday thing. Like, I think sometimes people will forget that we're human and we have the same human emotions and reactions just like everybody else does.
Rebecca, we absolutely love her. She's always such a pleasure to see backstage at fights. But we talk about, things going positively in the glass half full. This bantamweight division, Aljamain, you've got to be so proud of it. I mean,
it's full.
Yeah, it's very full. For us, we think it's probably the best division in the UFC right now. It's just so incredibly stacked with talent, and not just talented fighters, but also really exciting fighters. And you're the champion of that division. Does that give you a sense of pride when you see all the talent that's at 135?
When I stop and take a moment to look back at everything, I'm very proud of everything I've done to this day, Even this next fight, I take it all fight by fight and I look at it and I just go like, no matter what happens, going into the first fight with Jan, the rematch with Jan, the Sandhagen fight, like all these fights I'm touted and expected to lose so that someone else could get that next shot or make their name off of my work and things I've done. That's the fight game, It just reminds me of how far I've come. And just in life in general, so I always feel like no matter what happens, like I've won already, So if I lose this next fight, and I always say this, people say, oh, that's a bad mentality. I'm like, no, it's not. It's a freeing mentality. It lets me fight as best as I can. There's no pressure. I won in life already. This is just icing on the cake. So I go out there and I smash this guy. Now I'm the 3-time champion, defending champion, So life's good. So I have nothing to worry about in that sense other than go out there and perform and just be at ease and do what I do best and honestly just have fun with it. So it's a great division. I'm proud to say that I'm on top of it. It's been a long road. It's not easy to get here, and I think sometimes people forget how hard of a path I've had to actually get to this position. So whether or not you think the wins as the champion has been a little bit odd, it has been. I'm not going to lie about that, but I can only fight what they put in front of me, So at the end of the day, I'm doing my job, I'm winning, and that's what matters the most.
Absolutely. What do you think about the future for 135 in the UFC? Because it seems like we're seeing a lot more collegiate wrestlers enter the divisions, and they're usually smaller guys. There seems to be a whole new generation of athlete that's also training who maybe wanted to be professional athletes and have the talent and the drive and the dedication, but maybe not the size. And here they are looking at the best division in the world.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a gauntlet. So if you want to jump into this division, you got to understand that you got to be good everywhere. It's not just come in and just be a wrestler, because we're starting to see that even though you're taking people down, if you're not doing damage, you're not winning the fights. We're starting to see that some guys are good wrestlers, but once it's on the fight, if you can't get the takedown, they kind of panic. So you kind of have to have a good, well-rounded ability and I guess mindset and approach. You got to be coachable. You got to be willing to learn, and I think that's the most important thing. You look at that top 15 and it's just a killer's row of anyone who could be champion at any given time. I mean, you got Dominic Cruz, you got, Jose just retired, but you got Merab, you got Sandhagen, who just beat Cejduo. Cejduo was the next big thing, and then you got Giannis, who was supposed to be the next big thing, just lost to Rob Font, who was on a skid. It's just like anyone could beat anyone. It's just one of those things. Styles make fights. You got Song Yadong, and it gets me excited. Of course, you got Umar, and people are thinking he's going to be the next Khabib. So we'll see. It's just I think these younger guys just need to take their time, be a student of the game, and hopefully good things happen for them.
Yeah, you mentioned Merab, one of your best friends, Merab Dvalishvili, obviously
lives across the street.
Incredibly talented. Okay, we'll go knock on his door next to see if he wants to do an interview. But I'm so curious how much you guys talk about the situation you're in. Obviously, he could be fighting for a championship if there was another champ in his division, but it's you. You guys don't want to fight each other. I completely understand why, but how much do you guys talk about the reality of where you both are?
Like we've talked about it multiple times, but it's never been like, okay, this is what we're gonna do kind of thing. I even told him after the fight with Jan, I told him in the back room, and I even told him in the cage, I was like, tell him you want to fight for the title. Let's make this a real thing before they're just trying to make us fight for what reason. If you're not gonna offer him a title shot, like don't make it seem like, oh, he's not fighting for the belt because I'm in this position. If he's offered the title shot, now we're in a different position where now things are real. Right now, we're just saying hearsay. If the UFC wants to make that fight happen in terms of us two, then we can have the conversation and figure out what we're going to do. But I have no intention of fighting Merab, like, at all. You know, I moved here. He bought his house literally 4 or 5 houses away from me. We've been the main training partners ever since, 2016, I would say. I met him in 2014. Wow. So we've been together for a very, very long time. And I've helped teach him. He's helped teach me some things as well. It's just one of those things. I just can't see that. And I think 145, I think I got the frame to go up. I mean, if Volkanovski could do it, he's a short little nugget, you know. I can't see why I couldn't do something similar and eat a lot more and just get a little bit bigger.
I think the photo of you and Conor McGregor surprised a lot of people when they saw, oh, wow, Aljamain's pretty big and he fights at 135. Were you getting a lot of commentary in your life? Like, hey, have you thought about moving up? Yeah,
I have. Funny enough, even Ali's, who's Henry Cejduo's manager, he actually said he thinks I would do very well at 145. We actually grappled with each other a couple times, and I've jumped into some of his training sessions before. But I look at some of these other guys at 145, and I train with them, and I feel good about it. You know, I just think as I'm still competing at 135, my frame is still like in that middle progression. But I think I have the room to fill out. I have the reach. I get big, and I think if I turn that into a little bit more muscle, I think I could be very competitive there.
And the assets at the UFC Performance Institute could most likely help with that as well.
Yeah, so I think after this fight, we'll do an assessment when I'm a little bit bigger and fat and happy. So we'll go from there and see where my strength level is compared to everybody else. I know when it comes to grappling, a lot of these guys, I think I smoke, and that's not trying to be like cocky or anything. I just think from experience and training with some of these guys, I think I'm in a very good position when it comes to that. Of course, when I get to the top of the mountain with those guys, it's going to be a little bit different. Taller guys. I mean, you got Calvin Kattar, you got Giga Chikadze, even Ilia Topuria, who that guy hits hard. Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez. There's a lot of good guys there too. So I'm going to have my work cut out for me either division. Both of them are stacked, and I look forward to the challenge.
Does champ status appeal to you at all?
Oh, that would be amazing. If I do that, the perfect scenario, I smash Henry, I smash O'Malley, I go up to 145, I fight Volkanovski or Rodriguez, and maybe I defend the belt one time, and I'm done. I think that's the perfect scenario. Because at that point, it's like, what else do I have to prove? I'm going to keep fighting until someone finally beats me? That's not the mentality I want to go in there with. If I don't feel like there's something to prove, then it doesn't really get me up and excited for it, you know? Like this matchup with Henry, I'm excited for it. And at first, I thought no one cared about it. Now I'm seeing that the fans are really behind it. They want to see this matchup. They think it's going to be a good test. And I'm like, all right, this guy thinks he could beat me. You guys think he could beat me. Now let's put money where your mouth is. And that's what gets me excited. That's what gets me up in the morning to go train and put in those hard hours.
I can just tell by the way you're talking that your energy changes, that you are super excited for this one. You know, as we said, there's the murderer's row at 135 pounds, and then in comes Henry Cejduo, 3-year layoff. Were you surprised at all when this was the name that was offered to you as the next challenger?
Yes and no. I thought it was a joke because he's been talking about it for so long, but he sits on the sideline just making these funny videos and kind of on everybody and not really giving credit where it's due. Like where I do my podcast and I do my YouTube breakdown stuff, I give credit. You know, he kind of like a little bit. I don't like the way it kind of has a lack of character in the way he approaches it sometimes. The way I feel like he almost feels like like he could walk on water. That's what it comes off to me. But I know he's talented. I know he's tough. I know what I'm getting myself into. But he hasn't gone through the gauntlet that I have. He can say that he beat the guy who knocked me out. I mean, at this point, like, no disrespect to Marlon, but who hasn't at this point? You know what I mean? So it's like, I think you just showed what a lot of us thought what would happen if you get out of the first round, what could possibly happen with him. And Henry did a good job of staying mentally tough, and that lets me know that he's going to be there to fight the entire time. So just when I look at these things, I try to be honest about the assessment, and he's a 25er coming up to 135er, and I have to keep that into consideration. Like, yeah, he's been on the couch for 3 years. Has he been training the whole time or just making these funny YouTube videos, you know? So that gives me a lot of confidence. I know he's putting in a lot of serious work, but I don't know if he's going to be Henry Cejduo 3 years ago. The same speed, the same strength, He might be a little bit slower. His reaction time might be a little bit slower. And this isn't a freestyle wrestling match. This is a fist fight with top and bottom control where I get a wrist, I take him down, I put the hooks in. That fight's as good as over. I'm going to have his little legs. When I put the hooks in and I get that high mount on him and his little legs are dangling and kicking in the air like, ee, it's going to be the funniest little thing. You know, so I can't wait. Like, I envision this. I'm like, he thinks his Olympic gold medal is going to save him, but we'll see. There's only one way to find out, May 6th.
I think there's a little subtle message going on with your T-shirt because it seems like this is maybe a singlet. He's wearing a wrestling singlet. You're obviously fighting an Olympic champion wrestler. I mean, so this, to me, when I walked in, I was like, oh, he's saying something with this.
Yeah, for sure. And I represent both countries, you know, the country I was born in and the country where my heritage and my roots are from. So unlike Henry, he could take a couple notes on that. Not claiming Mexico is kind of weird to me, but it is what it is. We got the USA wrestling. This is where I learned to wrestle. This is where I learned to scrap. So we're going to figure it out. You know, you could have a gold medal, but at the end of the day, it's a completely different sport. You did that when you were 18 or 19 years old. Dude, you're 36 now. If I don't even think he's wrestling the way he was wrestling when he first started MMA. I think that's the difference. I'm still wrestling literally almost every day. So when we go in there, I think he's kind of showing a little chink in his armor by talking about, this excites me. I'm like, this excites you because it's easy. When it comes to wrestling, you have to grind. No one wants to do that for 25 minutes or less. So I'm going to test his heart, his will, and see where he's willing to go. And I know if he even slips the slightest amount and he lets me get to a top position, it's a bad night for him.
What about the striking battle? Because we know Henry as a grappler predominantly, but he does hit really hard. We know that he's had some success on the feet. I mean, when you look at him, or at least what we have seen of his career several years ago, how do you assess him as a striker?
I think he's gritty. We've seen him take some damage, and then we've seen him say, you know what, enough of this leg kick stuff. Let's just bite down on the mouthpiece and let's just go full on, which he should be claiming, his Mexican roots of just being tough and just going after it. And that's what he's done in the past. I don't know if his striking's as good as he might think. I think he's got some things that he does well. He's got some things that I think he does wrong. And I think the size disadvantage should play into my favor. As long as I do the right work all the way through and it's the way I think it's going to go, I think this is a tough fight on paper, but I think I'm going to make it look easy.
What do you think about the shtick? Like, you know, fight week that he's going to try and be Triple C, the king of cringe, and is going to try and get under your skin. I mean, do you think it's funny? Does it bother you? Does it annoy you?
It's just him. I mean, I won't say it bothers me. I think more when I was getting more annoyed with him was that every time he saw me, he'd need to like bring up a camera to like make an interaction. And I was like, we were at the fights one time and he said like something, I'm going to the bathroom. He was like, there's no cameras now. I'm like, dude, I don't give a shit about no cameras. I think you forget that this is real life. Like we're actually fighting now. You're not on the sidelines. You're in the testing pool. We have a date. We're fighting. So no more of this jolliness. We could talk and maybe be cool afterwards. But for now, like, it's not a game to me. You know, we're going in there with bad intentions to really hurt each other. And I think sometimes he thinks it's like he's almost trying to lull you to sleep by making you feel like you're friendly and I'm just this goofy, corny guy. I'm like, nah, dude, you're the threat and I need to eliminate the threat. And after that, we could talk about it and maybe see if we can be friends.
Do you think that there's a part of him that's underestimating you? He actually told our team that he feels like he respects you, but there's not a lot he fears about you. Is that a mistake?
It could be whatever he wants it to be. I mean, I feel like a lot of guys say the same exact thing until we stepping in and it go, oh, I get what people were saying now, and now I get to feel it for myself. And I think it's just a different game when you step in there with me. I think I bring a different style. I think I bring a different pace. And I don't think he's felt top control the way that I have. And I think this is going to be like John Jones when he fought Chael Sonnen. When Chael Sonnen compared it to being mauled by a bear, I think that's what's going to happen. I think once I take him down, it's going to be tough on the feet. I got to close the distance the right way. I can't run into something. But I got the reach advantage. I got the height advantage. I got the weight advantage. I just want to know, what does he think is going to be his paths to victory? You're going to hit me with the inside leg trip? You're going to sit in my guard and hang out? Are you going to take me down? Or are you going to stand up and strike? I think his goal is I need to try to knock him out. And good luck with that. I'm very hard to hit. And with those short, stubby arms, good luck, Henry.
You mentioned top control a couple of times during this interview. I mean, how much are you working on not just your own grappling abilities to score the takedown and get him down, but also reversals, being able to switch position and end up on top as well?
We got all of our bases covered. I leave no stones unturned. I get my repetitions everywhere. I look at the fight everywhere it could possibly be. I look at Henry where he's most dominant. I look at him where he's most comfortable. The TJ fight, he's good in the turtle position. If you let him clamp on. I look at the Mighty Mouse fight, the rematch. I saw what he was good at in those positions, but it was a close fight. Inside leg trip, no damage. The Dominic Cruz fight, chopping down the legs and then Dom kind of ducking his head into a kick. But Henry made a good read there. So there's things I take. I give him I give him credit. There's a lot of things he does well, and there's a couple of things I think he has a little bit of holes, and I think it's just my opportunity and my chance to kind of expose those.
He said his goal is to finish you in 3.
It should be. That should be his goal. Your goal should always be to finish, and I guarantee you I'm going to finish him before he gets an opportunity to do it to me.
When you envision it, do you see this being a very early night of work? I mean, what really do you see when it plays out in your mind?
I think the first round is going to be, I don't want to say a feel-out process, but I see myself coming out forward, pushing the pace, and trying to get a hold of him. And I think he's going to have a little bit of anxiety trying to get out of there. He's going to try to spam some big shots, hoping that he could catch me. And if it doesn't land flush and he lets me lock my hands, I take him down. If I don't finish him in the first round, I think I finish him in the second. I really do think I even feel like with the TJ fight, despite his shoulder or anything, when he threw that kick, it fell into my hands. The way that we've drilled so much, the repetitions, like just knowing all his movements, the way he has his tendencies to throw certain stuff. Caught it, took him down. He posted his hands, shoulder came out. I didn't know until the end of the round. But after that, I think you could kind of see where the top control, and once I start to open up with strikes, it made him react and let go of the 2-on-1 and 1-2, try to escape. Same thing in the second round. I think it's going to be very similar. I think I really do think this is going to be a good fight for me. It's a dangerous fight, but I think this is a good fight. I think it's just when you have two guys who are at the top of their game, I think one guy's a little bit hungrier. I think he stepped away from the game because I think he might have gotten bored, or he might have started to run out of money, why he's coming back. He can answer those questions, but I want to test his will to be in there, and I think that's the difference. I want to be in there. I want to make history. I know he says he wants to do all these things, but I think sometimes there's a lot of talk, and I know he's mentally tough. But you got two mentally tough guys, and we're going to have to figure out who's the better man that night.
And two tremendous athletes. I mean, we are so excited for this fight because you two are just absolute competitors when it comes down to your core. But this one's in Newark, New Jersey, not too far from Long Island, not too far from your family. I mean, were you excited about that? You've had a lot of fights that have been other places rather than home.
If I'm being honest, I was hoping to fight in New Jersey. I mean, not New Jersey, in Vegas, because I've never fought at the T-Mobile. I've always wanted to fight at the T-Mobile because it's just something that just seems like the coolest thing. It's the fight capital. But I've never been able to fight at home. New Jersey was kind of my home on a regional circuit because I couldn't fight in New York for whatever medical thing that's going on with that. They're supposed to have like a board meeting and hopefully allow me to fight there once before my career is all said and done. Hopefully we can fix that after this, and maybe I can have one type of real hometown fight. But for the most part, I fought in New Jersey the majority of my career before I got to the UFC for Cage Fury. And I had a lot of success there. So a lot of the New Jersey fan base, they do know me over there. And it's a short drive from the city, a short train ride. So a lot of my friends are coming out, a lot of my family, friends from college and things like that. So I'm very excited for that. Once I start to look at the bright side of things, I was like, yeah, it might not be Vegas, but it's home. My friends don't get to see me fight at home. And I think this is the first time in history we had an East Coast person fighting on the East Coast defending their belt. So in what would be considered, the hometown fight. So I'm very excited about that. And I think they've done a great job promoting the event. And I've had a lot of friends who've been reaching out, and I haven't seen a lot of these people in years. So, guys, forgive me if I don't remember what you look like. It's been a long time since high school, 2007. So it's been a long time getting old. But I look forward to a great night with friends and family. And for me, again, I don't care about the result. I want to go out there and compete the best version of myself. And I think if I do the things that I've been doing in the room, it's going to be a good night. At the end of the day, for me, it's glass half full. This is a great opportunity to remind the world who I am and to add another ruby to that belt.
We cannot wait for it. Aljamain, best of luck to you in this one against Henry Cejduo.
Thank you.
Thanks.